They told the world a lie, a devastating, self-serving lie. They said Africa was silent, that its people were taken without a fight, that millions were led away, meek and submissive, as if they didn't resist. But the real story, the truth, lives elsewhere. It's in the soil, in the scars of history, and in the memories that survived even when written records were erased. Let's uncover that truth together. From the very first moment enslavers set foot on African shores, resistance began. It wasn't a single, grand battle, but a constant, simmering defiance. Villages fortified themselves, building walls and digging trenches. Entire communities packed up and moved inland, away from the treacherous coast, seeking safety in dense forests and rugged mountains. Watchers stood guard day and night, their ears trained to catch the slightest unfamiliar sound, the dip of oars in the water, the crunch of foreign boots on sand. This wasn't passivity, this was strategic defense. When capture was imminent, it was met with ferocious force. Men and women fought back with everything they had. They used spears, bows, and arrows, but also the tools of their daily lives, farming implements, household items, their bare hands. They fought not because they were certain of victory, but because surrender was simply unthinkable. To yield meant the end of their world, the loss of their families, their freedom, their very identity. Many of these battles were lost, and countless others were never recorded by the enslavers who wrote the history books. But the resistance was constant, a relentless tide pushing back against the invasion. And for those who were captured, the fight did not end. It merely changed form. On the long, brutal marches to the coast, known as the coffles, people looked for every opportunity to escape. They slipped away into the dense forests under the cover of darkness. Some simply refused to walk, an act of defiance that brought severe punishment, but still sent a clear message. My body may be in your chains, but my will is my own. And some, facing the horrific reality ahead, made the ultimate choice. They chose death over chains, a final, heartbreaking act of control, a declaration that while their body could be taken, their spirit could never be owned. At the coast, in the holding pens and dungeons, the infamous factories and castles, the resistance became a chorus of sorrow and strength. These prisons overflowed with captives who sang. They weren't songs of defeat. They were songs of remembrance, of mourning, carrying the names of their ancestors, their lineages, their gods. They were songs that held promises to return, to never forget where they came from. These melodies were a lifeline, a way to hold on to their humanity in the face of unimaginable dehumanization, a code that their captors could hear but never truly understand. The walls of those dungeons absorbed the sound of defiance, day after day. Then came the Middle Passage. Aboard the suffocating, dark hulls of the slave ships, resistance became quieter, more desperate, and incredibly dangerous. The struggle for freedom continued even on the open ocean. People refused food, embarking on hunger strikes that weakened them, but also disrupted the enslavers' profits. They secretly broke tools and sabotaged parts of the ship whenever they could. Some leaped into the vast ocean, believing the water would carry their spirits back home to Africa, or at least grant them a final release from bondage. Their choice was a powerful testament to their refusal to be cargo. And there were organized revolts. Uprisings erupted in the terrifying darkness below deck. These were planned in whispers, coordinated between people who often didn't even share a language. Their communication was one of shared experience, of gestures, of a universal human drive for freedom. Armed with broken chains or anything they could find, they fought against impossible odds, driven by a shared, burning refusal to be owned. Historians have documented hundreds of these shipboard rebellions. Most failed, but every single one proved that the spirit of resistance was not broken. It was alive and fighting. Once across the ocean, in the so-called New World, the resistance didn't end. It adapted once again. On the plantations, it took the form of everyday rebellion. Tools would mysteriously disappear right before a big harvest. Work would suddenly slow down to a crawl. Systems would inexplicably fail. This wasn't laziness, as the slave owners claimed. It was sabotage. It was a calculated, daily war of attrition, a way to chip away at the system that enslaved them. Barns and fields would mysteriously catch fire. This was warfare without armies, strategy without maps, a constant, low-level insurgency that kept the enslavers perpetually on edge. And some took the ultimate risk, escape. They fled into unforgiving forests, swamps, and mountains, forming their own free communities. These were known as maroon societies, places like the Palenques in Spanish colonies or the Mocambos in Brazil. In these hidden sanctuaries, they rebuilt their lives. They created societies where African knowledge, spirituality, and systems of governance not only survived but thrived against all odds. These communities were a living, breathing testament to successful resistance, a beacon of freedom that inspired those still in bondage and terrified the colonial powers. They were a constant reminder that freedom could be won. The lie of African submission was a convenient one. It was a tool used to justify unimaginable cruelty. It comforted the conscience of those who built empires and fortunes on the backs of human beings. It painted a picture of a civilizing mission rather than what it truly was: a brutal, violent enterprise of theft, the theft of people, of labor, of futures. But history, when you look closer, tells a very different story. It tells a story of incredible endurance, of sharp intelligence, and of a relentless, unbroken spirit of defiance. So let's be clear. African resistance did not fail. It survived. It survived in the culture that was passed down through generations, in the music, the stories, the food. It survived in the memory of the elders. And it survives today in the descendants who still carry the echo of that powerful refusal to be defined by oppression. The truth is simple, and it is powerful. Africans did not accept slavery. They fought it. From the very first moment, with every tool they had, with every ounce of their being, until the very last breath. And that is a truth worth remembering, and a truth worth telling. Thank you for watching. If this history matters to you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories that need to be told.